on Tuesday, the 31st of August. I will just hand you over to the lovely Mr. Taylor, our committee manager for the moment.
Okay, hopefully everyone present will hear the meeting. However, in the event of a technical failure, the chairman will adjourn the panel and set a new time for its reinstatement. Please note the meeting is being recorded and a copy of the recording will be available on the Council's YouTube channel in the next few days. All attendees should have their video on, but should remain muted until invited to speak. And if you wish to attract the chairman's attention, please, if possible, make use of the instant messaging function, and all members of press and public should remain muted. And the format of the meeting will be as per the agenda published.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I'll just run through the agenda before we do all our introductions and check we can all hear each other. So I'll just start with item number 1, apologies for absence.
We have no apologies, Chairman.
Excellent. Number 2 is urgent business, which we
There
don't
are
have
none.
any of. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Don't think we have any. Item number 4, Wick Farm. We're here today to consider an application for a temporary event notice for an event in a field adjacent to Wick Farm, Breen Road, Limpsham, BS240HD, following objections having been received from the police, and the report is attached. And at this point, I'm going to go around the room and just do the introductions and make sure everybody can see and hear, and then we can crack on with the meeting. Thank you. So I am Councillor Polly Costello, Chairman of Licensing and General Purposes Committee and a ward member for Wedmore and Mark, and so far I can see you all, and I'll wait to see if I can hear you all. I'll move on to Councillor Kingham.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Stuart Kingham. I'm ward member for the West Podens, and I can see and hear.
Super duper. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Cathy Pearce, Westover Ward, Bridgewater, and I can see and hear you all. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Our applicants today, I've got Stephen Fowle.
Hello, my name's Stephen Fowle. I'm the applicant. I can see and hear all of you.
Super. And then I've got Andrew Parker with you. Well, yes.
No, this Mark Whitehouse is the organiser.
Oh, Mark, yeah. And then I've got Andrew above. He's part of the gang as well, correct?
He is correct, yes. I can't see Andrew for some reason now, but
okay, no problem. Lovely. Objectors from the police, we have Nicola Cooper. Nicola, can you see and hear us?
Yeah, apologies. I'm police licensing officer. I can see and hear you.
Super, thank you very much. PC Tracy Jones, am I correct? Yes.
You are, thank you, Chairman. Yes, PC Jones, I patrol the area that the event's going to be taking place, and I can hear and see everybody.
Super, lovely. The licensing officer, we have Mr. Baller.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Simon Baller. I'm the licensing officer for Sedgemoor District Council.
That's not my dog this time. Maybe in a minute. Next, I have our legal team. I have Mr. Osborne.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. Nigel Osborne, legal advisor to the panel, and I can see and hear all. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Miss Webber.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm a legal officer for Sedgemoor District Council, and I can see and hear everyone.
Lovely, and last but not least, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Chairman, I can confirm I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Lovely. Is that all the official people I need? Have I got that all done, Steve?
That's right, Chairman. Yes.
Lovely. Super. Right. Well, going back to the agenda, Mr. Baller, would you like to please present to the panel?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So the purpose of the report today is to determine whether to issue a counter notice in respect of a temporary event notice, or a 10, submitted regarding an event to be held at a field adjoining Wick Farm, Breen Road, Limpsham, BS240HD. The field being used is a 17-acre field located to the right of the property bordering Breen Road. So the background is, on the 15th of August 2021, a temporary event notice was served electronically upon Sedgemoor District Council by Mr. Stephen Fowle. Copies were subsequently served on the police and the Council's Environment and Health Department on the 16th of August, and a copy of the redacted application is shown in Appendix A. The current position is the notices indicate that Mr. Stephen Fowler intends to hold an event where the licensable activities will include the sale, supply of alcohol and the provision of regulated entertainment. The proposed regulated entertainment includes live music with 7 bands, all separates, performing on the stage between 1400 hours and 22:30 hours. This is a planned one-day event for Saturday, 11th September 2021, between 1400 hours and 23:30 hours, with the regulated entertainment from 1400 hours to 22:30 hours. The application indicates that up to 490 people will be in attendance, including all staff and security. This event was initially planned to be held in the field in Fordgate, Bridgewater, but this was eliminated because the applicant, Mr. Stephen Fowler, assessed the situation and assessed it would become a traffic hazard at that location. And so after a careful thought, the applicant moved the proposed event to its current proposed location. Representations by way of an objection to the notice were received from the police on Thursday, the 19th of August 2021, and are attached as Appendix B. Concerns raised relate to all 4 licence objectives: to prevent crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the prevention of harm to children. The objection was made within the time limit by the Act, and the licence officer deemed them to be relevant. The applicant, Mr. Stephen Fowler, has been made aware of the objection via email and has acknowledged the fact, and he is here today. Attached are 2 plans shown as Appendix C and Appendix D, which illustrate the area requested to be licensed. And the options for the panel today are to allow the temporary event notice to stand as applied for and the event to continue, or to issue a counter notice that would prevent the event from lawfully taking place. The licensing officer has determined that the representations submitted by the police are relevant. It is therefore the duty of the panel to determine the application with regard to the licensing objectives. The issue for the panel is whether the application as submitted undermines the licensing objectives as claimed in the representation submitted by the police. If so, the panel must issue a counter notice. So in conclusion, after hearing the evidence presented, if the panel is of the opinion that to allow the event to proceed would undermine the licensing objectives contained in the Licensing Act 2003, they should consider the service of a counter notice. If, however, the panel does not consider that the objectives would be undermined, they should allow the temporary event notice to stand. Also, in conclusion, in support of the application, the applicant has submitted a very detailed event safety management plan containing an introduction, an action plan, security and stewarding plan, lost children, vulnerable adults policy, maps and plans of the site, and a comprehensive risk assessment at the end. This document is over 100 pages long and was added to the agenda pack only this morning. So that concludes the summing up, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baller. Has anybody got any questions for Mr. Baller at this stage? No? Okay. Well, then we'll go on and listen to Mr. Fowler. Would you like to present to everybody? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Simon, it's nice to see you. Obviously, we've had a conversation in the past. As Simon pointed out, this event initially was planned to be held in my field in Fordgate. We started to put together quite an in-depth EMP for that site. We ended up coming up with some quite strong local objection, which I took into full consideration. And also looking at the traffic, I don't know if any of the members of the committee know Fordgate. I deemed that at this time for this event, maybe that there might be some traffic issues. So I attended a parish council meeting to allay the fears of the locals that were worried about it. And I'd already made the decision maybe a week or 2 before we submitted the tens that we were going to look at a different site. I have apologised to Ms Cooper, obviously, for the late notice, the late submission of the EMP. However, the one thing I would say for mitigation for myself is when I actually went to the Sedgemoor council site to submit the tens, it actually said on there, is the event for less than 499 people? It is, so I submitted the tens. Had I had known a bit more before about the EMP situation, obviously I would have submitted it at the time, but it wasn't really clear on there, so I can only apologise for that. So looking at the event itself, it is, as you've stated, Simon, it is for 490 people, including all the members of the public and the staff. The reason we chose this site is because my band, the Leylines, played an event there on the 7th of August. It was the Sedgemoor Tractor and Cider Festival, and it was a well-run event. It was very safe, it was very secure, and there was no trouble as far as I'm aware, and everything ran as it should have done. So the reason for choosing that actual site was because we knew that that was a good site and it had an event there recently, and we had the full permission of the farmer. I went and spoke to Mr. Trait, the owner, the farmer, and he was in full support of it. So that was the decision to move there, is because we knew there had been an event there before, which we had actually played. So then it was a case of bringing Mr. Andy Parker back in to have an event control team, an event control management team meeting on site, so that we could look at the layout of exactly how they did it for the Sedgemoor Tractor and Cider Festival, given the fact that we've got the same kind of lineup, we've got the same amount of campers, we've got the same amount of public. So the reason we went and had a management team meeting there, we walked the site, myself and Mr. Whitehouse have been back again a number of times, and that's why we wanted to go to that site, because we knew that it was a good site and a safe event had already been held there. And a point to note as well, that actually the owner of, the organizer of that event, Mr. Bradley Loveridge, is actually now on part of our management control team as well. He's in charge of the traffic management, and he's also supplying all of the Harris fencing, the pedestrian fencing, festoon lighting, because he knows the layout, and it's a carbon copy of the layout of what he did. So that's, you know, he's become on board with us because we know it works, we know it's safe, and we know that it's doable, sort of thing. I don't really think there's much more I can say. As Simon pointed out, you know, the EMP that we've submitted has been put together by a team of very experienced festival organisers. Again, Mr. Andy Parker has a wealth of experience in the health and safety arena. Mr. Whitehouse has organised many events. We've also got other festival organisers, namely Mark and Jackie Bale, who have just run their very successful Watch It Festival. They're advising us on things. We've also taken advice from Mike and Sue Daniels, who run the very successful Godney Gathering. All these people are they're part of our advisory board, if you like. We're surrounded by people that have done this many, many times over the years. And like I said, I feel, given that, you know, the EMP that we've submitted, 107 pages, which covers all of the risk assessments and all 4 of the objectives, I believe we've met, and I honestly believe that we can provide a safe and secure and successful event. I think that's all I've got to say, Chairman. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Mr. Fowle. Any questions at this stage for Mr. Fowle?
I've got one, Chair.
Okay, please go ahead.
It's just following the egress of the campers the following morning. Is there? I mean, you've got plenty of plans for the actual event on the Saturday, but on the Sunday morning when they're leaving, is there any plans for marshals and that to help them with their egress, traffic-wise?
Absolutely, Simon. We've been in contact with a number of carnival clubs, including North Petherton, Burnham and Highbridge, and Bridgewater. We have a bank of volunteers that are willing to help us to marshal. Again, like I say, Bradley Loveridge will be on site on that morning as well. Given the fact that he organised the last event, we've got a one-way traffic system. We've got a no right turn out of the event exit to make sure that there's no traffic problems. We're giving people till 12:30 the next day to exit the site. They will be marshalled through the site, and they will be, you know, I say escorted. They will be, you know, off the site nice and safe by 12:30 the next day.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Observations? No. Okay, lovely. Next, we'll move on to our objectors. So, Nicola, are you doing this, or is it Tracy?
Yeah, we'll probably both have some points to.
Okay, if you'd like to go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. I won't repeat what Simon's already read out about our representation. The information put forward so far is correct, but I had 3 days to assess this event. and the event management plan that I asked for within those 3 days and detailing what information I required was not forthcoming. And in fact, it was more than another week. Mr. Fowler said that between you all, you put on some very experienced events, and you've liaised with a lot of experienced festival organisers. If that were the case, I think they would have told you the process, that they've got extensive event management plans in place, and Bradley probably would have told you that he did have to go to a SAG, which hasn't happened. The event management plan has come through very late in the day, and unfortunately we can't then start mediating so late in the day over plans for one event when we've got so much else going on. And looking at the plans in the very limited time I've had this morning, there's still quite a lot missing. For example, I can't find Party in My Field advertised with this new location. It's only advertised at Fordgate, where it says we're having a party and you're all invited. So that could mean that lots of people turn up without tickets. And I'm aware that the tickets, 300 have been sold, and you've been selling them since May. So I think that was ample time to get to us, the event management plan, liaise with us and attend a SAG meeting. There are discrepancies. I've got no liability insurances for all the people that are involved. There's no emergency access and egress from what I can see from the plan. Any details of any tracking, width of gates, details of traders, emergency eviction, dispersal policies. Going on to your risk assessment, for example, it's got an emergency planning meeting with stakeholders will be arranged in order to draft an agreed plan of action by the event organisers, security stewards, local and emergency authorities by the 10th of August. That's never happened. So as soon as I start looking at plans that aren't accurate, that does cause me some concern. Again, there's a lot of things going to be in place on the 5th of September, the 10th of September, up to a day before the event. Well, unfortunately, that's no good to me. This is an event that I'm not aware of, that hasn't been at that location before. There were some issues with the Tractor and Cider Festival. So just skimming over some of those points there, I think it's fair to say that not all the plans are in place to our satisfaction. Things like, have you liaised with highways about signage, and what about the unlit road if people are leaving late at night when it's dark? Is there any late night refreshment for hot food and drink for campers? I've got no idea of how many campers and the procedures and policies that are in place for them. There's a lot of discrepancies, which looks like it's cut and paste on the event management plan. It looks like you can laugh, Mr. Fell, but at one point it says page number 59 to 61, but the rest of the document's not numbered. There's no version control, and there's a lot of just contradictions, like pets are not permitted, but later on it says child and animal policy. And glass is not permitted, but then it says glass will be confiscated. And there's lots of things right the way through the plan. And that's with me just having a quick skim over it in, like I say, the limited time that I've had. I don't know whether my colleague, PC Jones, has got anything else you'd like to add, perhaps on the drugs policy.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would like to just add a couple of things. Obviously, I reinforce what Nicola said. We haven't had very much time to actually go through it. So going through the plan yesterday morning, I picked up a couple of things, Steve, that I, as a police officer, am not 100% happy with. And that's just reading the events plan that you've done. So the drugs policy, you've got 3 points on there, and I really do think that needs to be revisited, because there's no such thing as personal use. You know, a Class B drug is an illegal substance that nobody should be in possession of, and you've put on there that you made reference to personal use. that needs to be rewritten. When I had my meeting with Bradley on the SAG, I also told him this, and I've got concerns that he is maybe having an input on this because he never came back to me and rectified that drugs policy. It was still the same when that event occurred. So that's one thing. Again, I'd like to reiterate with Nicola how many tickets have been sold. I think she's just said 300. You've also got in the plan that the local residents will be advised about the music event. I'd just like to make sure that that has been done. So we're not going to be receiving complaints on that night for something that they're not aware is occurring. It's very, very difficult, obviously, to manage ASB and noise levels when the local residents aren't aware. Also, on your EMP, you've got Paul Thompson Fire Safety, just a little typo. I think there's no telephone number for him, although you've provided contact details for everybody else. The SIA security location, I just want to clarify, or would hope that you would be able to clarify a few things. So we've got 2 at the entrance. Is that going to be the main entrance or the performance entrance? Again, I've got a concern that it's going to go along the lines of the drugs. You know, if you're saying that you're searching people and doing handbag searches, if people are arriving in their vehicles, that is not going to be a feasible thing to do. So I would want to see these drug searches or handbag searches done as people are entering the performance entrance as well, because that's where they're likely to take it rather than you know, in the main entrance when they come in. You've got on there that you've got 6 SIA staff being present. Are they going to be static in those positions, or are they going to be wanderers? You've put that the event marquee is going to have an extra 3 patrolling whilst the event's on. Are you using those 3 from the existing 6, or are you having another 3? If the others are going to be in a static position, because that would obviously make 9 SIA security staff available. The abuse, disclosure and youth, you've put on there that children from the age of 16 and 17 are in a position to be able to make up their own mind if they want to report a crime. Any person of any age can report a crime, but I've just got concerns that somebody up to the age of 18 is still a juvenile when it comes to the law, which you may not be aware of. So any person that we as the police would deal with would have to have an appropriate adult. So I just think that needs clarifying a little bit. And the overindulgent social procedure with youth, you've put on there that the police will take responsibility for a child that has to leave in an ambulance. Police don't do that. We're not babysitters. We wouldn't take responsibility for somebody else. If something has happened within your event, it's down to you to take reasonable grounds to deal with that. And once that person has then gone in the ambulance, the responsibility would be the ambulance. So you've got a couple of things there that you've mentioned the police would take responsibility, but that's not the correct procedure. So I think that just needs retweaking a little bit. And I've got one major concern, and I think Nicola's already mentioned this, is that if you've got an emergency and your site has to be, so you have to evict everybody because there's some kind of major emergency, the road that you would be evicting them onto is a road with bends in and it has no street lighting. And you, as well as we, would know that drunk people on a main highway without lighting and vehicles within the road do not mix very well. So we would have concerns because that could end up being a major incident if anything were to happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. It kind of seems to me that because this EMP came in kind of this morning for you to see that the police haven't really had enough time to digest it, and I need to know that, you know, are we going to proceed with this, or are we going to adjourn and come back at another point, because you need to know what's in place. This plan's got to be correct before we go any further, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, and like I've already said, I have asked on 2 occasions by email Mr. Fowl to withdraw this event because it does need proper plans in place and he should really have attended a SAG. Now, whether that's later in the year or next year, that is what we as the police have asked him to do, because the list of things that we've come up with is not exhaustive, and we cannot say that this is going to be a safe event on the plans that we've got in place without going into, you know, we can go into a lot more detail on all of those points. So yeah, there are still concerns, and no, we haven't had time to liaise with him. And even now, if there's 10 days left before the event, and it's not, I can't see it advertised anywhere. I mean, there's 300 tickets sold, which shouldn't have happened without the licence being in place. We haven't got the time to be toing and froing with plans that could have been in place back in May or June or July even. Thank you, Chair.
General feeling, panel members? Mr. Kingham?
Thank you, Chairman. Listening to the police and Mr. Fowler, traffic and parking obviously is a bit of a concern. There's a lot of traffic going down a very narrow road, and as they said, it's a bendy road. How near is the nearest properties that will be to the site, and what will the noise level be? Will it be controlled? And I haven't heard anything regarding COVID testing. Will there be testing at the gate for people? Do they have to provide test results when they enter the site? That's my concerns at the moment.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fowler, then I'll come back to you, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I just thought I'd address some of these issues before we get so many that we can't keep track of them. Officer Jones, I really appreciate what you're saying about the drugs, and absolutely I accept the personal use is no use. At the end of the day, there is a zero tolerance on the drugs, and the simple fact is, you know, any drugs that are found on that site, whether it's a small amount or a large amount, is not acceptable. So I'm with you on that, and I apologise for using that terminology. With regards to, you know, the children or the minors being looked after, again, from the point of the view of the safety aspect of our team, you know, we do need to look into what happens if a minor or if a teen is left site with the ambulance. You know, do we send somebody with them to accompany them if we can't get hold of the, you know, the responsible adult? So I agree with that, and you know, we can look into that immediately. That's, you know, these are things that we can definitely look at. With regards to the traffic that the councillor brought up there, I would like to draw your attention back to the fact that an event has happened there on the 7th of August. I know this is a different event, and I really appreciate that, but there must have been, you know, the same conversation for that exact same event for those reasons and those, you know, those eventualities. We have got a very in-depth evacuation plan. We've got a green, amber and red alert state. We've got all of these things that are contained in, you know, within the EMP. And the councillor, like I said, as far as I'm aware, just off the top of my head, obviously the nearest property is the farm itself, Wick Farm, and I believe the nearest other property is 300 metres away. Addressing one of Mrs. Cooper's points, the reason why we sold the tickets as we did, we need to have a viability. We need to know that there's an event before we put the event on. And bearing in mind that this was all meant to be happening in my field at Fordgate. So we were going to allow dogs, because my wife and I love dogs. So we were going to happily, you know, allow people to bring their own dogs. And it is a family event, and therefore we wanted to welcome children and families as a whole. Now, obviously, moving to the new site, they don't want dogs, and we're fine with that. And we have notified a few people that we know that we're planning on bringing dogs. The reason we haven't made an announcement yet is because obviously with you guys, you know, we need to know whether it's going to happen. All it takes for us to do to notify every single person that's bought a ticket is to send them an email, and we have their contact telephone numbers. The reason we've done this is so the ease of information and ease of communication. Now, we don't want to announce anything to anybody until we know exactly what's going on. At the moment, we need to announce a site change. We need to announce that there is a lineup change as well. Two artists couldn't make it, so we're going to have to tell them. So it makes sense to bring all this information together to allow them to have the information that we need to send over. With regards to the rest of the tickets, the reason it hasn't been advertised is because the majority of the people that have bought tickets for this event are fans of my band and the other bands that are coming. So we really didn't need to advertise it to the general public, because we knew that we would be able to get the tickets that we needed, or the tickets that we wanted, by just advertising in the places which we did, which was on personal personal Facebook pages and the event page. So I do apologise that we haven't updated that at the moment, but like I said, it's because we needed to know that we could secure the new site first of all. If we could secure it, is it viable, and can we get the TENS license? With regards to the TENS, again, I do bring it back to the fact that if we went to the Sedgemoor website right now, for that date, for that event to happen on the 11th of September, we actually theoretically have from tomorrow to submit a TENS license for an event that's happening on there. That it says you can submit a TENS up to 10 days before the event. So again, that's, we presume that we are still within our time frame. It's not ideal, I know, and I really appreciate that, but we are within the time frame as it says on that website, Oh, sorry, and one more for the councillor. In the EMP, unfortunately, like you say, you don't have a copy of it, but there is a significant COVID, we've looked at COVID, and all of the staff will have access to hand sanitizer, to face masks, to wet wipes. All of the attendees will be asked to take a lateral flow test before arriving. They will also be informed that if they're feeling any of the effects of COVID, please do not attend the event. And of course, if anybody does come and they fall ill, we would make a record of them and their illness, and that would go back to the medical team.
Great, thank you. I've got Councillor Pearce and then Nicola Cooper afterwards.
Thanks, Chairman. I just think we've been placed in a really difficult position here, or maybe not so difficult, in that we're 11 days before the event is due to take place. I haven't seen sight of the management plan, and as a responsible body, we need to make sure that every detail is considered to ensure that it goes off safely, both for people attending, yourselves as organisers and local residents. And not having sight of that, and the police saying they've only had chance to have scant sight of it, it's difficult to understand how we could be able to make the decision you wish today. Did I hear correctly in that some notices had gone out previously saying that this an event was taking place and everyone was welcome? And you're saying that you're going to restrict the numbers to 490 and there'll be 7 acts there. That doesn't seem a lot of people to me, but I just don't know how you'll control that. If I don't know how you'll control those numbers with notices going out. If I heard correctly, that sort of everyone would be invited. So I do have really grave concerns about the event.
Okay, Councillor, thank you. I don't know, I'm not sure where this everyone is welcome.
Just a line on the
Yeah, so basically it just said that there's a line on the top of the page that says we're having a party and you're all invited. It then follows on to tell people that it is a ticketed event, it is limited tickets, and they will need a ticket to attend the event. So everybody is invited to buy a ticket to come to the event, which is limited to 400 people from the general public. The other 90 being restricted to obviously the staff and the medical team, security team, etc., etc. So I think that's being taken a little bit out of context with you're all invited, because that is at the top of a page that goes on to say that it is a ticketed event and you will not have access, yeah, it's, you know,
September joint me and Donna.
yeah, so yeah, it's aimed at making it family accessible. The terminology is that we want families to feel that they can come and have a great day out and enjoy it. They're all invited, but obviously it does go on to say that you will need a ticket. And again, the reason we sold the tickets when we did is because we needed to make sure it was a viable. This, you know, I'm sure many of you will know that this is a standard thing in the, you know, in the events industry. You need to know that an event's viable before you do all the, you know, all the rest of the work. And again, like I said, this event was planned to be in my field. After a conversation I had with Mr. Baller, it was deemed that it wasn't. So these are all mitigating circumstances as to why that we couldn't get it in when we did, when we, you know, maybe should have.
I've got Nicola, and then I know Kathy's, Councillor Pearce is raising her hand as well. Go ahead, Nicola.
Yeah, I just wanted to address a comment that Mr. Fell made way back, and that's like you wanted to make sure you sold the tickets, 300 tickets, because you wanted to make sure this was a viable event before applying for a 10. Unfortunately, that's not really good enough excuse, because a 10 costs 21 quid and you need to go through the process and make sure it's in place. I don't think if you were wasting £500, then you know, maybe that I could take that on board. But it's 21 quid, and as you've spoken to lots of experienced people, and Bradley Loveridge and the people that organise these festivals, you all know the process. And you've also mentioned in your risk assessment that you were attending a responsible authorities meeting by August. There is no excuse for it to be left this late in the day. And we haven't got time to look at revised plans now. There are discrepancies right the way through, as I've said, even on the COVID measures, which Councillor Kingham brought up. It said things like people, if they've got symptoms, shouldn't be permitted to the site and will be encouraged to take a test. And then later on, when it goes into the policy, it's completely different. And there literally are discrepancies all the way through. And that's a lot of work for a 107-page document. But the main things are still the fact that there doesn't seem to be emergency egress. You haven't liaised with highways. We don't know much about the camping, how many camping tickets have been sold. No late night refreshment, no hot food and drink has been applied for. So I just wanted to reiterate all of those points, that you have known about this event since May, and unfortunately now it's too late, because it's our expectation that when we do get those plans, they are final, and time's run out. Perhaps Mr. Baller, you could clarify if he was to resubmit plans after today and another 10, would that be now a late 10?
Yes, definitely. It's got to be it's got to be 10 working days, or within 10 working days, and it can't be the day of the event or the day you submit it. So you're looking at 8 days.
So therefore, Mr. Fowle, if you were to resubmit the plans to, you know, fully detail this event safely, which is what would be our expectation, and we weren't happy with it or had time to look at it, there would be no other hearing. The temporary event notice would just be objected to and thrown out. That is the procedure that we're left with now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearce.
Yeah, it was only to respond to the comments made. It just seems to me there are too many mixed messages. And whilst the intention would have been to hold it at Poorgate initially, that's not the case. It's irrelevant now, because the application is for another venue. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I have to say I'm concerned that this is, you know, this event management plan has come in at the last minute. If the police aren't happy with it, you know, it's very hard for this panel to make a decision. I'm just going to have a quick talk with legal here. Nigel, have you got anything you want to say? Because I think we need to go into the members' room and have a quick chat potentially, and come back with what we might have to do.
I mean, there isn't anything specifically from a legal perspective. At the end of the day, you know, the applicant has put forward his proposal. It is very unfortunate that his event management plan has not been submitted until the last minute. It's submitted just before a bank holiday weekend, which doesn't give any party significant amount of time to really consider it. If there are holes in it, there's no opportunity to make good on those issues, and they are significant factors that you will have to take into consideration. I appreciate that other events have taken place in this location, so there is some sort of credibility to the site, whereas in other matters that you've dealt with in the past that wasn't the case. But notwithstanding that, we are here to consider the specific application for this specific site on a date in 11 days away. So you can't sort of just accept because an event has taken place recently that seemed to go off reasonably well without any fundamental problems. That's good enough for you to ratify this one. There needs to be some in-depth consideration of what's before you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Mr. Baller, have you got anything else you want to add?
No, thank you, Chair. I think it's all been covered, to be honest.
Okay. Mr. Fowle, have you got anything else you want to add?
Well, I think just before, I think I'm quite aware of how this is going to go. So I appreciate everybody's time and feedback and consideration. I really, really do. I mean, ultimately, we do want to put on a very safe, welcoming event. At the end of the day, that's the intention. The one thing I would ask respectfully is that if somebody was to go to Sedgemoor website to submit a TENS, could it have some information on there that actually, when you submit your TENS license, if you are going to leave it till 10 days before the event, which is you're within your right, that you should have a full EMP and all your risk assessments ready, so that anybody that finds themselves in this position in the future is fully and undoubtedly aware that before they submit that TENS, they are only going to get 3 working days to submit that full EMP with all the risk assessments. I think that's, I think people should be made aware of that.
Nicola? You're muted. You're muted, Nicola.
Sorry, if I can just answer that point. If you are running a music event with 7 bands, that event management plan should have been in place before you even applied for a 10.
There's nowhere,
the 10 is not subject to you having that event management plan. We just want to see something that should be in place, if that makes sense.
And as I said, respectfully, if the information was on the website to let people know, just for example, if I'd never done this before and I had no idea and I wanted to hold a village fete in the green, and I went onto the website and I thought I'm going to have some musicians, they're going to play, we're going to have some food, etc., etc. When I go to the website, it says that, if it's under 499 people, you need to submit a 10 at least 10 days before the event. But it doesn't say anywhere on there you will need a full event management plan and risk assessments. Please make sure you have this before submitting the test. I just think moving forward, I think it would be a good thing for people to be aware.
That's not really the legislation, and I'm sure Simon Baller will back me up on that. Really, temporary event notices were always designed for small things like fetes, although yours does qualify for anything like a music event. As an experienced musician and event planners, I do think the process that is in place, and that event management plan should have been done. And I think you've said that it was for Fordgate. It just needed to be amended in time, but you certainly didn't have one the day you submitted the 10 because I asked for it, and that's where the problem's arisen.
When you asked for it, I did say that it was being finalised, but my colleague was actually running his own stage at Lakefest, which was in Herefordshire, and there was no signal. I couldn't get the final details for the EMP. This is a moot conversation now anyway, because I fully accept that there are issues with the EMP. So, I do accept that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Baller, do you just want to add anything about the 10?
Well, the 10's always been a light touch approach, Chair. It's meant to be quick and easy, and the government designed it that way. They don't want it full of red tape, etc. But when you come to something like a festival, which it is technically, with a stage and 7 bands, then you need to be more robust with your application and supply things like EMPs and stuff and risk assessments, just to make sure that it's run safely and safe for everybody. But I can make some representations to my manager about putting something on the website about EMPs and etc. For larger events. That's not a problem.
Might be helpful.
Yeah,
Might save a lot
agree.
of.
I think it's a good point.
Might save a lot of time and hassle for everyone. Mr. Osborne, I see your hands up.
And I'm muted. Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to add on that. I mean, we obviously we can look and see whether there's anything we can do on the website. I mean, the website's designed to deal with the requirements under the government legislation. What I would say is that we do have in our licensing policy recommendations that anybody who's holding a temporary event that's going to have a significant number of people should make sure that they have undertaken full consultation and do have an event management plan in place. So you know, perhaps we could at the very least point people in the direction of our licensing policy if they're considering events of this magnitude, because that would give them a bit more advice.
Yeah, my concern again, Steve, is that you have been talking to lots of people who run all sorts of events, so it's a shame that if you've all chatted that they haven't filled you in on one of the most fundamental points. Any other summing up? Anybody got, Mr. Baller, got anything else you want to say?
Thank you, Chairman. Not really. I think it's been said by everybody, especially Kathy, Councillor Pearce made some really good points about her concerns, and Nicola's made some really good points. And I think Mr. Fowles realised that the EMP is not satisfactory for this purpose. So it's time to the panel really to make that decision. But I think everything's been said that needs to be said.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, thank you all for the time. What happens now is that the panel will go into a separate chat room. We will have a chat, have a discussion, and we will be back as soon as we can with the result. So, gang, if we can move into the members' room, and the rest of you, thank you. We'll be as quick as we can. Thank you. Counter notice following police objection, section 105, Licensing Act 2003. Sedgemoor District Council, as licensing authority, received from Stephen Fowle a temporary event notice on the 15th of August 2021, pursuant to the section 100 of the Licensing Act 2003, in inverted commas, the Act, in respect of a proposed temporary licensable activities, namely the provision of regulated entertainment and sale and supply of alcohol at an event due to take place between the hours of 1400 hours and 22:30 hours on the 11th of September 2021 at land adjacent to Wick Farm, Breen Road, Limpsham, Somerset. The licensing authority have received a valid objection from the Avon and Somerset Constabulary under all of the licensing objectives pursuant to section 104 of the said Act, and having considered the matter at a hearing held on the 31st of August 2021, are satisfied that if the activities were to take place, they would contravene one or more of the licensing objectives. The reason for issuing this counter notice are as follows. The decision of the panel is made following consideration of the evidence presented to the panel by the applicant and police, both in person and in writing. The decision is made in accordance with the Council's statement of licensing policy and the Secretary of State's guidance. The panel was concerned that the applicant had failed to consult with the police, being one of the main bodies able to object to such an application prior to submission of the application, nor submitted an event management plan, an EMP, with the application. Having considered the representations made by the police, the panel is of the opinion that the application, as presented, fails to demonstrate that sufficient thought preparation and consultation had taken place to promote the licensing objectives. Whilst the applicant has now submitted an event management plan, it was only received by the police on the 27th of August and by the panel today. Despite having limited time to evaluate the EMP, the police were still able to identify significant shortcomings and discrepancies that would not enable them to withdraw their application. It is apparent that whilst some thought has been given to the EMP, It appears that there has been an element of cut and paste, and that the plan does not reflect the actual event due to take place at this location, largely due to the late decision to change venue. The panel accepts that the applicant has brought together a group of people to help and support the event. Unfortunately, it appears that they have been brought on board too late in the day. The applicant admitted that tickets had been on sale since May, which would have provided more than enough time for suitable consultation with the police, Highways Authority and local parish council. Accordingly, whilst the panel believe that Mr. Fowle is genuine in his desire to promote a safe, secure and controlled event, the evidence presented at today's hearing on the 31st fails to adequately promote the licensing objectives and therefore resolves to issue this counter notice. A copy of this counter notice will be sent to the Chief Officer of Police for the area in which the premises specified in the temporary event notice you gave is situated. The Licensing Act 2003, Schedule 5, Part 3, Paragraph 6.2 makes provision for you to appeal against this counter notice to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days. Under Section 136 of the Licensing Act 2003, a person commits an offence if he carries on a licensable activity on or from any premises otherwise than under, in accordance with an authorisation, or if he knowingly allows a licensable activity to be so carried on. A person convicted of such an offence is liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, or to a fine not exceeding £20,000, or to both. That concludes our meeting this afternoon. Thank you all for attending, and good luck. And I'm sorry about that, Mr. Fowle, but that's the way cookie crumbles. Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much.